Everything's starting to come together, and it's blowing my mind. Hey guys, what's up? It's Julie the Bibliophile. Today I am here for a bonus vlog for season 4. I've been doing a few of these throughout the season where, separate from my episode review, I talk about something that I've noticed during season 4. I did a review this week as well of episode 9 and the town called Feud. You can check that link in the description or at the end of the video. So I want to talk about some things that I started to pick up on at the end of And the Town Called Feud. So the first thing I want to talk about is the idea of the different themes of the episodes this season all coming together at the end to help us solve this conflict, because I honestly think that's what's going to happen. Now, we know this season we don't really seem to have a big bad. There's nobody trying to destroy the world. There's no apocalypse like in previous seasons. This season is entirely about the librarians themselves, their relationship with each other, and the relationship with the library, which I find really, really interesting. That also has some big consequences, though, because now we have Flynn leaving the library, Cassie considering leaving the library, this debate of can there be one librarian or can there be more than one librarian? Can we stay together? Who's a librarian? Who is not? What are we gonna do? The other conflict we have to solve is the conflict of Flynn resigning from the library. As far as we know right now, Flynn has resigned from the library at Nicole's warning. But we don't know that. Something could have happened to him. I'm gonna get into that. But right now we have to solve the conflict of getting Flynn back to the library, and if indeed he did leave, how is he going to earn his forgiveness and find his way back into the library family and tether with Eve to be bound together for all eternity? But I'm not getting into that. We're not going to cry about Evelyn just now because that's going to get too far. I've been noticing since about like episode 5, episode 6, when the season started to do its little tonal shift, I've been noticing each of the episodes has a clear and distinct theme to it. A message that we're getting from it, what does the episode mean at the end of it, and I think all those episode themes or motifs that are just showing up in the episodes themselves are going to come together at the end of the season to solve these conflicts. So first of all, we have episode 5. The theme of episode 5 was Flynn with Darrington Dare, and that's when we had the conflict first presented of there can only be one librarian. But Flynn says to Darrington Dare that, you know, my friends saved my life. They save my life every day, and you need some friends. And in the end, this convinces Darrington Dare to reconnect with his friends, and he lives longer than he previously did. So with episode 5, we are dealing with the theme of the importance of these friendships and how they're all saving each other's lives in the library. I think that's going to come together at the end to remember that there can be more than one librarian, because Flynn was arguing heavily with Darrington Dare. Flynn is saying no. The library chose all 4 of us. They're my family. I'm not leaving them behind. And I've done videos about how that shows how far Flynn has come. You can check that link in the description at the end of the video. So I really think that idea of being reminded that friends save your life, that the family you make with your friends saves your life, and you can't be alone, that's going to be important at the end. I think it's especially going to be important to Flynn finding his way back, but I think it's going to be important for all of them too, of kind of being reminded of this. Then, of course, we have episode 6, where Nicole presents the idea to Flynn that Flynn says, I can't leave the library gave me a purpose. And Nicole says, no, the library showed you how to have a purpose, but now it's keeping you prisoner because all you think about is the library. I'm really interested in that debate of the library gave me a purpose versus the library showed me how to have a purpose. I think they're all going to have to go through that conflict in the end, maybe, but I think they're all, and Flynn especially, going to discover that maybe the latter is true, that the library didn't give you your purpose. The library showed you how to have a purpose. You have your own purpose. But that does not inherently mean that the library is holding you back or keeping you from some true destiny, just because the library is not your entire purpose, because, you know, now Flynn has Eve and he has the Lits, and they have more of a purpose outside of the library. They have a purpose with each other and with themselves. I don't think that means they have to leave the library. I think they're going to discover that the latter can be true while it's still being true that the library is not keeping them prisoner, and the library is a home for them and a good place for them. Then the one that really interests me that I talked about last week, which is episode 7's theme, and that is the idea of you let these people think that their family just up and left them. The fact that there was a whole episode about that in the episode right after Flynn left, in the same episode that we're talking about Eve being so hurt by Flynn leaving, and Jake telling Eve it's not your fault that Flynn left, and we have all of this conflict about Flynn, the whole actual filler episode is about people thinking that their loved ones up and left them when really there was an outside force at play. And that just interests me, and I really think that's going to come back, because I do think that something happened to Flynn, that he didn't actually leave, and that we're going to see this idea of somebody did something that made the others think that Flynn would just up and leave them, even though they're family. Then we have episode 8 with my dear baby Cassandra, and Cassandra's resolution of, I want to be a librarian. Cassandra tries to leave, but then she discovers, I want to be a librarian, and she says that firmly. And I think that's going to be really important. I think they all have to have that moment. I think Cassandra, Jake, and Ezekiel each had that moment this season. Jake had the moment in the Disenchanted Forest when he gave up Serena in order to stay with the library, even though he loved her. Ezekiel had that moment where he came back to the library after going out with his mother and kind of just nodded with resolution looking at the library. And Cassandra had that moment when she left the library, went into Havenport, and freaked out, and then said, I want to be a librarian. I think that idea of I want to be a librarian is going to be so important, because that's kind of the theme of this whole season, isn't it? And I think Flynn especially has to have that moment now. So I think we're going to see the return of I want to be a librarian. Then from this episode, I mentioned in my episode review for this week's episode that I think the idea of love being stronger than war, and your love for your family and your love for each other being stronger than war, and that love forcing you out of a war, causing you to turn your back on a civil war, no less, because we are talking about the civil war between the librarians, that love ended a feud between these two brothers in the Civil War. Love of family ended a Civil War feud. And we're talking about the civil war that could happen between the librarians if there's more than one librarian, but we're also talking about how much they love each other, and we know that through the whole show. So I definitely think that theme is going to make a reoccurrence. So this presents the idea that all the themes from this season, my friends saved my life, the library gave me a purpose, you made people think that their family up and left them when really they didn't. I want to be a librarian, and love is stronger than war. I think all of those are going to come into play and tie together in the finale episode or the last 2 episodes to help us solve the conflicts of this season and bring everybody back together as one. I'm really excited to see what themes are presented in And the Dude Named Jeff and The Trial of the One. I think And the Dude Named Jeff is going to be a Jenkins-centric, so I'm excited to see that, and excited to see what kind of line we get from Jenkins, because we have this plot line with Jenkins now being mortal as well. And so that really fascinates me, because in season 1 we had this idea where all the artifacts that they collected came back together in the finale. Everything they did throughout the season was tied together in the finale to help them solve the final mystery. So now, rather than artifacts that they collected, it's going to be lessons that they learned, ideas that were presented to them now returning, not necessarily from a story standpoint, because I don't know if the characters would be realizing this themselves, but I think from a writing standpoint, from the audience's perspective, from an analytical standpoint, we're going to see the tie together again. Let me know what you think of this in the comments below, and did you notice any themes from the first 4 episodes that you think might make a return in the last 2 episodes or the finale? So the next thing I want to talk about with my bonus vlog this week is the idea of prophecy, and that perhaps the entire message of the whole librarian show, this whole show, everything's tying together, that prophecy is dangerous, and is that the theme that we've been leading up to all this time? So I think the biggest thing to take away from this is that I'm noticing in season 4 is that the only reason they're fighting is because Darrington Dare presented a possibility to them of fighting. They weren't fighting before, and maybe a little bit, but nothing that they couldn't handle, and now Darrington Dare presents this idea of there can only be one librarian, so now they're having a debate about whether or not Darrington Dare was right, and that's what's causing them to be selfish, because if they wouldn't be having selfish interests about the conflict if the conflict never happened, and that's what's causing Cassandra and Jenkins to believe that, Darrington Dare was right because of Zelpha the Forgetful's letter. So definitely it's because of what Darrington Dare told them that they're having the fight. And that returned my mind to Season 3 and the idea of the self-fulfilling prophecy. The idea that if you see the future, it's going to happen because in trying to stop it, you're gonna make it happen. So once you see a prophecy, even if you do things to stop it, it's gonna happen anyway because it becomes self-fulfilling. That was an idea that was always really interesting to me from the time it was first presented in that episode, but I didn't know it would be playing such a large role in the show, because the idea of the self-fulfilling prophecy is kind of the whole theme of Season 4 now. So then that brings my mind back to prophecy. What have we seen with prophecy in this show before, and should we be trusting prophecy? Because definitely in Season 4 we have a theme of prophecy. You know, another thing that happened is that the reason Flynn left the library is because he doesn't trust the library anymore because of what the librarian Jenkins did to Nicole. But Jenkins and the library only did what they did to Nicole because prophecy said that it had to happen that way, and Jenkins was trying to follow prophecy. So again, would any of this had happened if it weren't for that prophecy that then became self-fulfilling? So I think we're going to be presented with the idea at the end of this season and kind of throughout the whole show that prophecy is dangerous and we should stay away from prophecy because we're dealing a lot with the theme of prophecy this season. We had prophecy, we said we had prophecy for everything that happened the first 3 seasons, and now we're past the point of prophecy and anything could happen. We see this as early as Season 1 when fate says that Eve Bear dies protecting her librarian, no matter who that librarian is, no matter what universe she's in. Because she dies for Jake, she dies for Ezekiel, she dies for Cassandra, and she almost dies for Flynn, but Flynn stops it and says, I don't believe in fate. And that kind of sets us off for the rest of the show because that's one of the last moments of Season 1. We have the dealings with prophecy and how dangerous it can be in the second movie of Flynn and King Solomon's Mines. And then, of course, in Season 3, we have this idea of the self-fulfilling prophecy and a whole episode about how prophecy is dangerous. So I think that's a really interesting idea that the librarians in the show is presenting this central theme for the show that prophecy is dangerous. We shouldn't be looking to prophecy and the effects that prophecy can have. And I really want to see how that's going to play out in terms of this season. That's not so much something that I think would be mentioned, but just something that I think is a general theme of the show. And it really intrigues me because I'm seeing more and more in Season 4 how all 3 seasons can kind of tie together to lead up to Season 4. Because one of the things about the librarians is that while they're very consistent and, you know, they always make allusions to past seasons and they don't forget about things that happened, there's this idea that each one of these seasons is their own individual story. But now that we've gotten to Season 4, we're seeing all these individual stories and the pieces of these individual stories and the big plot points and ideas of these big individual stories that we told coming together to form the one big story of the librarians. And that's just not including the 3 seasons that came before Season 4. That's including the 3 individual movies and maybe the story of Charlene and Judson, the story of Jenkins. There's so many stories and they're all coming together to form this one universe, and each one of them could also stand on their own. And I find it really, really cool and really consistent and really just amazing, and shows me again how amazing the writing in this show is, and I love it. So that's all I have for my bonus vlog this week. Please let me know what you think of my theories and my ideas in the comments below. If you want to check out my episode review from this week for episode 9 and The Town Called Feud, you can check that link at the end of the video or in the link in the description to the full playlist of Season 4 videos. I do this every week during the season, giving an episode review and with the occasional bonus vlog talking about themes and motifs. After the season's over, I also do semi-weekly vlogs about the librarians itself and the occasional vlog about books. So if you like this video, please remember to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Tumblr, Twitter, Instagram. All links are in the description below. I'll see you guys next week, and stay magical. Bye!